Hello everyone, this is David from Automotive Press. It's hard to believe that Genesis brand is only about 6 years old, yet it is making a mark in the luxury brand. In fact, when I was driving around in this brand new 2021 G80, more people stopped and asked about this car than any other luxury sedan I have been driving around in the past year or so. People said this is beautiful, it's amazing, what is it? Is it the new Genesis? And so this brand is making a true mark in the traditional competitive luxury market like no other brands have done before. Now, if you go back a number of years ago, Hyundai's flagship luxury sedan was actually called Genesis before the Genesis brand was born. And then soon after, Genesis became its own independent brand. And again, it is the brand that we are all looking forward to in terms of the future prospect because it is making such amazing vehicles. This G80 competes with the likes of Audi A6, Mercedes E-Class, and the BMW 5 Series. But you know what? There's something cool and amazing about this G80 that is lacking in the European competitors. The Lexus has left its mark now because the GS is no longer available, ES is a bit small, and so is the IS. So it's kind of a unique position in the marketplace. That's why we are all paying more and more attention to the G80 because it is definitely a cool and a unique vehicle in this market. So today I'm going to do something a bit different. For over 30 years, I have been working as an automotive engineer, particularly in evaluation areas. So I'm going to audit this G80 as an engineer and tell you all the things I like, which is thumbs up, and things I don't like or thumbs down. Let me start with the exterior, move into the interior, and talk about the performance of the G80 and tell you things that perhaps you don't hear from other reviewers. Now the G80 is a sister model to the GV80, which I did review a number of months ago, and I was very impressed with that. But I'm going to review this G80 with an eye of an engineer. So that means I'm going to audit all of the exterior paint finish, the body alignment and integrity, and then I'll do the same thing on the inside, and then again I'm going to give you a thumbs up or thumbs down based on what I see. And this is what I used to do as an automotive engineer. I go around and critique the car with other engineers, and we sit around over coffee or lunch and trying to figure out what makes this car work or not work, and something that we did all the time. So looking at the exterior first of all on this G80, very unique design because if you notice the hood doesn't end over here like most cars. It actually ends over here and cuts through. And this is a very smart engineering, but also makes it a little bit more complicated because this hood, if you look carefully, kind of overshadows or goes over the front fender. And this gives it a very unique perspective and a design, but also it's a bit of a challenge for engineers to design all of these creases and still make everything line up. But they were very smart because by putting the hood and the front fender seam right here, it's harder to tell if the seam is in perfect alignment or not because everything is in perspective design. So if you look at the alignment between the left side and the right side, there is a little bit of a minute difference in the body integrity, but because of the design, it's very hard to tell from a naked eye. Having said that, is it as good as a Lexus? Not quite, because the gap does change in terms of both the size and the uniformity on the left and right side, but you just cannot tell under normal circumstances. So the body integrity is quite good. I would give it like A-. It's better than the German counterpart. If you did the exact same audit on the German models like a BMW or even Mercedes, you will see a bigger gap and they don't align as well. The other aspect of the car engineering that's hard to get it right is the panel alignment between the front fender and all of the doors. That's always where the defects show up. But in this Genesis, you can tell the doors are almost perfectly aligned and the gap is very consistent, and also the gaps are very narrow. Lexus IS, which is built in Japan, have the best body integrity of any cars I have driven. So if you compare to that model, maybe it's not quite up there, but it's good. I would again give it an A minus, maybe even an A in terms of alignment. And if you keep looking, I'm also looking at the paint match. So you want to make sure that the paint is matched all the way through. Of course, they're painted at the same time, but sometimes the paint is not uniform from front to back. But on this Genesis, again, the door here is perfect. It's a little bit off here, but very close to being perfect. And then this is very difficult. The gas cap is something we all hate to design, especially with all this crease built in, because it's hard to get it right. And you can tell engineers and manufacturing guys are struggling to get this part quite perfect on the front and back. But it's good enough for this model. And here's a trunk. There are so many creases here, which makes it beautiful, but it's hard to align. So you can tell there's a little bit of a misalignment here. But overall, the body integrity, the alignment of the pieces, again, I would give it a solid A minus. It's not the world's best, but it's pretty close. And the paint job is fantastic. When I look through and kneel here, this is how I look at the paint job, front to back, in terms of gloss, the shine, the smoothness of a paint. That is definitely A, maybe even A plus. Some competitors really struggle to get the paint quality right, because you have to have a right balance between the gloss and the smoothness and the depth of reflection. But on the Genesis, it's almost a perfect paint job. Engineering aside, what I like about Genesis, because they hire some of the best designers from the likes of BMW and Audi, they hired away top designers. And so what they've done is they've taken a bit of a chance, right? Whether it's the sweeping profile of the car, to the integration of the combination lights here, and again, this dual design. I mean, these are type of risk, or design risks, the other manufacturer just won't take it anymore because they're so conservative. And so with Genesis, you get this top-notch design with a top-notch performance, which makes this G80 a pretty cool car to drive. So let's talk about the inside now, and I'm going to audit the interior to see if it's as well made as Lexus or other competitors. So now let me review the interior of the G80 to see if it meets my high standard. We're going to audit the interior in terms of quality, in terms of design and functionality. So first of all, I love the design. It's a beautiful, beautiful interior that looks really upscale. It looks way more expensive than what the price tag suggests, with open pore wood, really good stitching, full functionality, and the latest technology. So those are all the wonderful things about this vehicle. So in terms of thumbs up, the quality and the fit and finish, it's hard to fault with this G80. So for example, if you look at the stitching, which is really hard to get it right, you'll notice, for example, in the latest C8 Corvette, which is nothing to do with the G80, a lot of people complaining about the stitching because it's crooked, right? But in this G80, it's a perfectly straight stitching all the way through. And you can see the stitching over here, they all line up. Those are actually quite hard to get it right. And only a few manufacturers in the world know how to do that well. And Genesis is one of them. Also the wood, the way they line up with the rest of the parts, these are aluminum parts here. And all of the fit and finish of the components looks first class to me. I can't really find any fault with it. I didn't hear any rattles or squeaks or anything that suggests that there could be defective components in this G80. So those are all of the thumbs up things. Also, latest technology in the infotainment system, 14.5 inches, one of the largest infotainment system in the market. And of course, the interior is just really comfortable, and the seats have massage function and a variety of other things to make your driving as comfortable as possible. So those are also thumbs up. But in terms of the critiquing side, there are things that could be improved. I know that this infotainment system is a touch panel, so I can operate it with my hand, but it's just a little bit too far. You're gonna have to have a very long arm to be able to operate this way, which means you will be using the infotainment system in conjunction with this touchpad, which has multiple ways to use it. You can, turn this, you can use your finger. So they've tried to make this as user-friendly as possible. but the actual execution isn't so good. It's a little bit cumbersome. I find myself just reaching out to the panel to operate instead of trying to use this. And so it looks great and design looks promising, but not as easy to use here compared to using it here. So all they had to do is bring this forward a couple of inches, and then you don't have to use this panel at all. So that would be one of my critiques. Also, I noticed when you're shifting this dial system, which is similar to what you see in Jaguar or Land Rover, clever and beautiful design with the knurled exterior, but it's pretty stiff, and it just feels like it's not quite there in terms of refinement. And I think a brand like Lexus or Acura, which is more mature, would have gotten these little details correct. Everything else, like in terms of the actual functionality of the center console, to the way that this opens and closes, and the way that the seat functions, hard to fold. They all look fantastic and they operate beautifully. Now, sometimes I do these punching tests as an engineer. I go and hit all of the components to see if I can make it rattle or if something is loose, because then over time they do end up becoming a rattle. But everything is solid. I can't make anything make noise or make anything move. So it's really well made. But I will say, in terms of that sort of my final comment, that this aluminum finish is beautiful to look at, but under certain type of condition, the light reflects and I can't really see very well, especially when things get darker and the interior light comes on. Then I notice the reflection of the light outside and inside makes it difficult to read the actual labels. Aside from that, it's hard to say anything negative about the interior. It's beautiful to look at, and you know what? This car looks like it cost twice as much as it actually cost. Now that we covered the exterior, the interior, well, the third most important thing about any luxury car is how it feels on the road. So let me talk about the steering feel, the suspension, the engine, and all of the things that make this car feel luxurious and refined. The Genesis G80 gets to 60 miles per hour in just over 5 seconds, and it has 375 horsepower, 391 foot-pounds of torque. So plenty of power and torque, but more importantly, it's how the engine interacts with you through the steering and the suspension and the transmission that matters the most. And of course, when it comes to luxury vehicles, you have to really tune that in a way that is balanced, so you are getting a comfortable ride and a refined feel, but at the same time, you want just the right balance of the way the engine and the transmission and the steering communicate with you. So in the G80, they got it dialed just correctly. This is one thing I really like about this car, is that the steering is definitely a little bit light. I do prefer a slightly heavier steering with a more heft, but for this kind of market, this is probably the right amount of steering effort. And as you get a little bit higher speed and or you put it in the sport mode, you do get a bit more feedback. So the steering is accurate, it's reasonably quick, and it does give you enough feedback from the road to give you a bit of a joy in driving. I would not say this is an engaging car to drive or it's a sporty luxury vehicle by any means, because it is definitely tuned for the ultimate comfort and maximum refinement. And in that regard, it does exceptionally well. It is very quiet. The engine is smooth. It torques up really well in terms of the RPM, and suspension soaks up almost everything on the road. Yet it doesn't lose composure when you're going around corners, and is able to balance itself even going over some potholes and rough road. So overall, the balance is really well done, something that some other manufacturers sometimes really struggle with because they tend to either make it too soft or too firm. And so let me take you on the road and explain a little bit more. So once you're on the road, the first thing you notice is just absolutely how quiet it is. Even if you're driving at the lower city speed or highway speed, they've done a great job of insulating this car, both in terms of the road noise coming from the road, but also general wind noise or exterior noise. And suspension, as I mentioned, soaks up bump really well. It's extra butterly smooth while still maintaining composure around corners. Now the engine, I do definitely like the 3.5 twin turbo engine better than the base model, which has a 2.5 turbo. That engine is tuned a little bit differently in Genesis than, let's say, in the Hyundai. I'm not too crazy about that engine. It tends to be a little bit on the rougher side of the equation, but this 3.5 is definitely the engine you should get. Here in Canada, you do get all-wheel drive standard. In the US, you can buy a G80 with a rear-wheel drive, but obviously as an engineer, I have to recommend the all-wheel drive because it's just simply a better traction all year round, and it is a very good system overall. Now it does have lots of technology to help you drive safely, and those are all the stuff that we expect nowadays in high-end luxury cars, so those are nothing surprising. But I do like the fact that in the sport mode it gives you a little bit more of a sportier feel than, let's say, in Mercedes or BMW. In those cars, when you put in sport mode, you know what, you don't feel much of a difference. But here the steering gets a little bit heavier, the transmission shifts earlier, and even the seats come a little bit closer to you in terms of side support moving. So those are all the things designed to give you a little bit better, sportier feel. Overall though, the steering effort is again light but predictable. It's balanced well, it tracks straight, and you don't get tired of driving this car. Some luxury cars you drive and it's so floaty and smooth, but so soft that it's just super boring to drive. This one, while not all that engaging, gives you just the right effort and the right road feel to help you enjoy your day-to-day drive, should you have this as your daily driver. So in summary, I cannot say enough about Genesis as a brand. It is only several years old and it has come this far in terms of engineering, design, performance, and even in terms of reliability and dependability. They have beaten some of the best Japanese brands in terms of manufacturing defect and manufacturing quality, something that is not easy to do. And this G80 is at the top of that game in terms of coming up with a car that is truly, truly good in the mid-sized luxury market that is being dominated by the Germans. Many of its competitors have abandoned this mid-sized market, but Genesis hits all of the right marks with the G80. And so it's the car that's worth noting. First of all, because there aren't that many competitors anymore, but secondly, just because this is a truly amazing vehicle. By the way, you might like some of the cool tools that is in this car, such as remote parking or smart parking, and a 3D graphics view of the instrument panel. Now it is a little bit gimmicky, but it does borrow the same technology from Nintendo game set, and it gives you kind of like a three-dimensional look when you look at the digital dash. It's not such a big deal in terms of technology, but it adds to that flavor of being a cool car. I think if I have to buy a mid-sized luxury car, this is what I'm going to buy, because it has all of the right elements in the cool factor that other brand can't seem to match anymore. So great job, Genesis. I can't wait what the future holds for you guys, because it is such an amazing brand with amazing product. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you very soon. I'm signing off for now.